Hey friends, in today's video I'm just going to show you some things that are growing wild on the property. So here on my homestead, I do sustainable gardening techniques to grow an enormous amount of food in a very small space using simple sustainable systems. We live on 13.5 acres, but it is all woods. If you look behind me, very little of it's cleared. I was a gardener in the soil for 20 plus years. Used many different methods of growing, and I just became weary of the work, the financial investment, the lack of sustainability, because those resources need to be constantly replaced in order to keep the soil up if you're not doing something like permaculture to build the soil from the top down. And then the resources became pretty tainted over the last couple of years with forever chemicals and things that have been destroying people's gardens. Actually had compost hauled in. I hauled in hundreds of dollars worth of what was supposed to be high quality compost, and it was littered with microplastics. It was filled, they weren't even microplastics, so I'm sure it was littered with microplastics. But the company had taken feed bags, and I guess people were donating feed bags full of manure, is my guess, to this composting facility, and instead of removing the plastic feed bags, they were just grinding them up into the compost. So I just decided that was not how I wanted to grow food. Also, I couldn't grow enough ever in my 20 plus years. I could never replace the grocery store with my homegrown. I could replace some things, but I could never fully replace the grocery store and take a huge chunk of that dependence away. And now I can. That's what I do here. I grow about 80% of my own personal food, working towards increasing that, and these are actually the ticket to making that happen. Mushrooms. It's a complete protein source for someone who lives a plant-based diet, which I do, and they grow amazing. Like they grow with ease. They're sustainable if you set up the right systems. None of us are truly sustainable with the way society is right now. We need other people, we need other resources enabled in order to fill the gaps. But there are ways to be more sustainable, and those are the things I focus on. For me, that means systems that I set up once that served me for a really long time. The towers that you guys see me grow on, that's one of them. I bought them once. I bought the resources in bulk that are needed, like the rock wool, and the things needed to grow in them are very minimal. I've stockpiled the nutrients I need. I keep a year plus supply of things on hand, and I can grow food for pennies. I grow my own seeds on the towers now for a lot of things. So I'm creating my own seed source of hydroponic adapted seed. There's always inputs to any system. So for me, it's how do I create things that I can set up that will give me food for a significant amount of time? And how do I get the most out of what I've invested? And so when I grow indoors, I'm taking my blocks, my fruiting blocks, and I'm growing them in a boom room grow tent so that they produce the most. After they burned out in there, I'm moving them outside and I'm growing them in straw or in wood chips, and I'm expanding the amount I'm getting out of those bricks to maximize how much I can get out of them and getting a ton of food. And then of course, got to buy the bricks again. So sustainability, that word's a little bit tricky, but it is the goal. You know, I grow in the towers because they use 90% less water. That is a sustainable practice. We are cutting back on a resource that is hard to come by for a lot of people. That makes growing food more sustainable. So just know when I use that word, that's what I personally mean by it. How do I grow the most food with the least amount of resources with the greatest ease? Simple, sustainable systems that you can grow in any space. All right, so let's talk these. This is a wine cap. I inoculated these wood chips. Oh, I don't know. It's been a couple of months now. And I do think one of the issues, and we'll start to get wine caps now, these got really bushy. I'm growing blueberries here, honeyberries, kiwi. I have all sorts of herbs along the ground. I think they were just getting too much shade for the mushrooms to fully inoculate. And now that we're starting to drop leaves, I am getting some wine cap mushrooms. And my theory, and I'm new to wine caps, is that they need more light is that they're growing right here along the edge, and I actually spawned them underneath the bushes, and so that tells me maybe they need a little bit more light, which is going to happen soon. These plants are going to drop their leaves, and I'm hoping the wine caps are going to pop off and we're going to have an abundance of food, which is great. Blueberries go, wine caps come. That's sustainable gardening. We're growing in intervals. We're making sure we have access to food year round all the time, right? All right, so these are a little past their prime, and I wasn't sure if they were wine caps at first. I had to go do a little research, but there is one right here that is a wine cap confirmed growing next to these. So a wine cap typically has that super rounded top and is a little bit wine colored. To me, I think they're pretty brown, but they're dark, deep brown, why they're called a wine cap. As they age, they start to get tan a little bit, and that bulb is going to flip up, so they're going to go this way for the purpose of spreading their spores. They have these super tight gills, and on these, I believe, this one's kind of young, but I'm going to pick it anyway so we can have a reference. Here, you're going to have like a whitish gill under there, and they get gray as they age. The stem is going to start to get a little bit more yellow as it ages, so this one's a little bit more white, but they have this classic, and this one fell off, part to them where there's this little rim where the gills kind of break away. It has a name, I don't know what it's called, and this one actually had it lower here. I just have been handling it and it must have fallen off. So that's another sign. They tend to be wider towards the base. You can see there's that wine cap that's nice and rounded, and yeah, that's it. So these are wine caps. I have 3 of them. I'm hoping to have a lot more of them. Super excited. And again, this is a complete protein food source that I get to add to my diet. And all I did was buy a wine cap block of fruiting spawn. They're called fruiting blocks, and spread it through here with some wood chips. All right, let's turn the camera around. I'm going to show you the other mushrooms I found this week. All right, and I'm going to B-roll in, which means just add in video of me harvesting these. But these are my shiitake, and I had them on logs. And when I pulled out the other day, I noticed I keep them on my driveway, and we're going to walk over there and see if anything else is available. But I noticed they were blooming, and so I harvested all of those. And I also harvested a pepper. I didn't mean to. It just kind of fell off when I was fussing with it. But we will use that. So let's take a little walk and go take a look at some logs, see if anything else is blooming. My pine straw tower is pretty burned out. It hasn't produced anything in a while. So I will definitely replant that soon. I do have a lot of mushroom work to do to transfer blocks that were in the garage into things like this so we can keep our harvest up. The jelly melons, there's so many of them. Those are on a project over the next couple of days. I'm still waiting for them to get ripe. They're taking a long time. These towers are pretty much done. I'm not going to show the towers today, but they've been turned over. Squash is starting to form. Cucumbers are coming in. I think I'm going to have enough time for at least a decent harvest of those things. The other towers are set up pretty much for fall crops that can rotate and expand into the garage. I'm starting new crops as well. So the towers are doing good. Okay, I'm seeing signs. This is lion's mane. I don't know if you guys can see that little white. That is the first sign. Oh yeah, here. That is the first sign. Lion's mane coming up. This is why you check your logs frequently. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh my gosh. I had no idea. This is why you check your logs. I actually walked over here when I was filming and didn't see anything. I was just going to say nothing was ready. Look closely, friends. This look at that beauty. All right, these are both shiitake. One's a little waterlogged, but that's okay. I'll just dry that one out. I'm gonna put these up and stack them a little bit better for airflow, and so I'm not missing any mushrooms. And this just gives them a little more room to spawn or fruit or pipping, I don't know. So that one's rotten. And a good reason to check your logs. I missed that one. Okay, I got those set up a little bit better. And a small log, the logs you saw me harvest from over by the house, those are, I want to say like 2 years old. Those are bigger hardwood logs. These smaller ones, they have started fruiting after less than a year. So the smaller the log, the faster it's gonna fruit. I think some of these small ones, where I got that big shiitake, that one's only like 8 months old. So the smaller the log, the faster they're gonna fruit. And the bigger the log, the longer they're gonna fruit. So I like to do both. We're gonna harvest some trees at the end of winter, right before they start to bud. That's when they're gonna have the most starch in the trunk. It's putting in all that sugar to pop the leaves out. That's when we'll take the trees down. I'm gonna stick to like 4 to 6 inch diameter. And then we'll have some branches and things. That's where those smaller logs come from. And when we get to that, I will show you guys a how-to video so you can see how to do that. If you don't have access to your own hardwood trees, we use white oak here. I have seen people selling the logs inoculated on Facebook Marketplace. It's become a trendy thing. You can actually buy them online at Etsy and eBay. Some garden centers will have them. If you can find some permaculture groups in your area, permaculture groups are great at doing this kind of stuff, and you can work together. We've had family parties here where we've had several families come in, and we just spend the day cutting down trees and preparing the logs, so it makes the work light. You can also find the logs on Facebook Marketplace too. People need help clearing land and they'll give you the logs, or they may just have them because a tree fell. I see those all the time. A white oak fell. I've got some logs chopped up if anybody wants to take them. People want that stuff off their land. So creative ways to get them, totally doable. And then we get this amazing protein food source abundance. I'm going to look one more spot and see if we have any more to harvest. And the reason I grow in several different spots is diversity. Close to the house, I can water them. So if I notice they're starting to pip, I think that's the term, pipping, I can spray them with the hose and it'll encourage them to fruit more heavily. I grow them on the driveway because that's just a great spot and I can see them pretty easily, although I missed those. So I did not do due diligence. And then the spot we're about to head to is actually a terrible spot, but I put my original logs there years ago and they're pretty burned out, so it's not worth moving them. But I wanted to share this, you know, growing sustainably. I grow in my towers. I have a new hydroponic system I'm going to be showing you guys. Those are just my ways of replacing the grocery store. This is how I can replace the grocery store, which, again, with that word, like, to me, that's what it means. There's a blanket up in the forest. One of my like beach blankets has been dragged up into the woods by an animal. That's pretty interesting. The bears will do that. They'll take things and go up in the woods with them. Sorry, got distracted there. So yeah, these are my way of growing sustainably. And again, to me, that means the least amount of work, the least amount of investment per food item. Doesn't mean there's not an investment to start. You know, we need tools, we need towers, we need logs. Those things are an investment, but they produce food for a really, 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 really long time at a very low cost after you get them set up. So that's the goal. But I went in there and I noticed my sprouts. So these are arugula and I heavily seed these. I have a seed starting course if you're interested in that. I'll link it below. But these got this white mold and it's like a, I don't know what it's called, but it'll kill your seedlings really quickly. If you ever get that, take your dome off, take your plants off the heat mat. That is the perfect environment for that mold to grow. And if you can do that right away, then you can stop it. And so now they're fine. So these are all good. I lost probably these two. These will still produce something. And then on this one, I lost quite a bit. So just a little side note. If you see that, that's what's going on. I actually used recycled rock wool. These are rock wool that didn't germinate from another thing, and it's more common for me to get this mold when I do that. So a trick is to spray 3% hydrogen peroxide water mixture. You can actually put that couple droppers full in your little container here with your rock wool and let it soak for a bit. Clean your trays and your domes really well if you ever have this pop up, and your grow station, and that usually does the trick. If you want to recycle rock wool and you have this problem with this mold, I don't always have this problem. There's certain times of the year that it pops up for me, so I didn't treat these with the hydrogen peroxide. But if you want to recycle rock wool, so something didn't germinate in your rock wool, you can try that 3% hydrogen peroxide first to make sure you have success. I also feed my rock wool to my chickens as grit, and it composts back in my permaculture landscaping. All sustainable things. We're using everything until there's no life left in these. And I hate that these are plastic, but they've lasted over 2.5 years. So for a cheap plastic, I don't know, someone make a rubber one? Stainless steel? I wonder if stainless steel would work. I don't know how the heat from the heat mat would conduct on that. So anyway, squash blooming. Hoping we have time for some more squash. I could really use some more squash before fall or before winter. Cucumbers galore coming in. We'll definitely get small cucumbers in time. Cucumbers are about 50 days depending on the variety, and I have until end of October, November before I won't be able to grow anything summer outside. Pretty much when the time change happens, I'll be done here. Now I can move these in the garage and try to get them to finish off, and that's what I'll do if they're still fruiting. Oh, sorry, I got some spider web on my face, but we'll see. So I get the question a lot about deers. We have so many deer in wild animals. This is a service berry. That back there is a cherry tree. And this is, I always say grow your food really close to your home, and that helps. Because I have behind you guys is my house, and there's a service berry, and there's a cherry, and there's a pear, and there's so many fruiting trees, and they don't mess with those. They mess with these that just are sitting out in the yard. This, you can't tell, but it goes straight down. This is where I used to garden, and it was a nightmare. The soil, literally, all of my money just rolls right down every time it rains. So I don't grow food here anymore, but I did want these trees. This will be more of a permaculture landscaped area, ultimately, with lots of fruit trees. Both have been able to handle it and are still showing signs of life. Hopefully that'll maintain. But yeah, plant your food close to your house if you have predators, and that eliminates a lot of the problems. The towers also make noise, and they don't like noise. And then someone asked me how you keep things from eating your mushrooms. The things that eat mushrooms are slugs, turtles. I'll have turtles take bites, but I don't have anything that like eats a mushroom. So it's common. Let me see if I can find one. This one's pretty rotten. It's common to see nibbles on the edges. Something ate like all through here. I eat them anyway. I'm gonna toss this one. This one's really waterlogged. When they get real waterlogged, that's pretty much the end. But yeah, so we just share. This part of our property is kind of a disaster. That's my old rabbit hutch chicken setup. We do not do rabbits anymore. This is the original owner's chicken coop. That's a shed. I want to keep my sheep back here. So we'll clean this up, and I'm gonna have sheep eventually. Okay, mushrooms are for sure on the menu. This thing weighs so much. This is so heavy, and it's full of bugs. So I mentioned what eats them. This one has lots of critters on it. So you can see it's nibbled, and there's a slug in here. Right there. If you're squirmish, sorry. So there's some little beetles and some flying things throughout this one. I have plenty of mushrooms, so I'm not going to eat this one. It's a little too waterlogged. And that's what'll happen. When you harvest them at their peak, they're not dry, but they're not waterlogged, and the pests aren't in them yet. It's as they start, so these are breaking down trees to turn them into, they're breaking down the logs to turn them back into dirt, decomposing them. And then the mushrooms start to decompose. The critters are what decompose the mushrooms and turn them back. So they get waterlogged. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's like actual water coming out of those. Doesn't mean you can't eat them. If we were starving, or this was the only mushroom that I found, I would actually eat this because it's still great. I just have so many, and like so many. If you guys see inside, definitely watch my videos if you want to know how to cook mushrooms. I'm about to cook a ton that I harvested. So I don't need this one, so I'm going to throw it back in. But if I did want this, I would just soak it in a little bit of salt water, which will draw out any critters that are in there. They've already left since me just holding it. I don't know, do we want to eat this? I hate to not have... Yeah, there's still quite a few in the gills, so I'm going to give this back to nature and let them have their food. Found this nut. I don't know what it is. It's not from this tree, so a squirrel probably dropped it. But I want to find out what it is, and we can locate the tree. I'm thinking it's a chestnut, or not chestnut, a macadamia nut. Is that a macadamia nut? Those grow here. I actually want to plant a few trees. So that's our beautiful mushroom harvest and harvest tour. Thanks for joining me. If you're not growing your own mushrooms, they are an excellent way to start closing the gap between you and your dependence on the grocery store. And it's just super fun to grow your own food and have that independence, especially something like mushrooms that are so cool. And I do have them spread out on our property, and we have a bigger property, but you don't have to have a lot of land. Or if you're in a neighborhood, these are great ways to grow your own food where no one would even know you're growing your own food. You can tuck logs behind bushes right by your front door or near your back porch. If you're in an apartment, you can put them in pots and just set them by your front door or on your back porch like they're fall decorations. It looks like logs that are there to use in your wood burning fire pit, for example. And then just water them. If you're going to put them on a covered porch, definitely make sure you water them and keep them moist. But great hack for growing your own food. Thanks for joining me. See you guys on the next one.